إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. Your host, Dr. Gillani, once again welcome you and say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all the listeners and viewers on the Facebook Live. Today is Health Clinic Day, and today is a special program where I have got two very inspirational guests who have joined me for this show. We will hear from them the story of their life, the journey which they have very successfully managed so far, and we will learn hopefully something from these guests. So the first one is with me, Sister Naseem, and I would like her to introduce herself in a minute. The only thing I wanted to mention today is that unfortunately we don't have WhatsApp text ability in our studio. You can still send some comments on Facebook Live, which we would be able to see. If you need to speak with us, you can still ring us, and our number is 01902 972 150. So I will just move on with the introduction of our guest, and I will let her to introduce herself. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Wa alaikum salam.
Can you please tell my listeners a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so my name's Naseem Amal Sadi. I used to be a nursery nurse, and for a lot of people that might know me, I used to work with Marines within a community day nursery with obviously under fives. Since having my children, I'm obviously now committed to my family. I have a little boy with a rare condition that takes up a lot of my time. So a lot of my skills I do use with him, talking to a lot of professionals. And the other big thing that I quite like doing, I'm a volunteer as a governor for a nursery in Wolverhampton, and I've done that for the past 8 years now.
Well, thank you very much for joining us in the studio today, and it's our pleasure that we are going to hear from you about your story, and thank you for sharing your story with us. So we were talking about your son Muhammad Zain.
Mm-hmm.
I will like you to take us through the life journey of Muhammad Zain since he's born, and I think in that journey we will know what he's suffering from and how it has progressed since his birth.
Okay, so my eldest son, he is, yes, Mohammed Zain. He arrived unexpectedly in February 2009. He was premature, 8 weeks, and born at our local New Cross hospital. He was rushed into neonatal at birth. Quite traumatic it was for all of us. And obviously, because he was in neonatal, he was monitored very closely. And soon enough, they gave us the news that he was born with a rare condition called congenital hyperinsulinism. I think for New Cross Hospital, he was the first one in Wolverhampton to be born. So they started to liaise with the Royal Manchester Children's Hospital. And so via telephone call, they were getting a lot of information on how to care for him. So you might say, well, what's, for a lot of our listeners today, what is congenital hyperinsulinism? As a mother, I soon learnt that it was to do with his pancreas and his blood sugars. They would dip seriously low any time of the day without, we wouldn't even get any kind of, there'd be no triggers there or anything. And this was happening to him day and night. I probably, as a parent at that stage, didn't realise the seriousness of it. For me, he was my first child, so I was more happy about that side of it. And I kind of looked at him and I thought, he looks so well. He doesn't even look like he's got disability. And although they told us what they told us, it was like above my head at that point. Obviously, eventually we got transferred to the Royal Manchester Children's Hospital. And we did arrive there early hours of the morning. And I do remember in HDU, the consultant meeting me at that point and saying to me quite clearly, you do realise you won't just be here for 2 to 3 weeks. And I kind of looked at her and I thought, okay. I really fully didn't understand what she was saying by that, because, you know, when people come into hospital, they get admitted maybe the odd 1 or 2 weeks. I kind of said okay at that point, and she says, I was thinking, gosh, she's my child, you know, what are you trying to say to me? So I remember saying to her, yeah, I respect what you have to say. And obviously we were tired, you know, it was early hours of the morning. And I remember saying to her, yeah, I respect what you have to say, but you kind of need to understand that I will listen to you as a professional and what you have to kind of offer to me. But I'm this child's parent, and in return, you know, I'd want you to listen to what I have to say as well and what I might be feeling. And she kind of looked at me in amazement. And I think I probably felt that strong at that point, because within my career, I've had a lot of professionals that I've worked with them at kind of different levels. So I didn't feel kind of scared. I just felt comfortable in saying, if you work with me, I'll work with you. And that's how it was at that point. So obviously from HDU then, he did get transferred to a normal ward. But this ward at this hospital was really special, purely because it just specialised in this condition only, hyperinsulinism. So all these nurses and consultants, kind of as a parent, it gave me strength, because slowly but surely we were being educated about this new condition. So yeah, my son had lots of tests, lots of trials on medication. There was lots that they did for him, and at one point I remember saying to the consultant, isn't there anything else you can do for us, because the last resort would have been quite a complex operation. And unfortunately it did so happen that he had to have 98% of his pancreas removed.
So can you just share with our listeners your information about this very rare condition? Just tell a little bit more about what actually was causing those low blood glucose levels.
From kind of over the years now, at that point I probably didn't have a clue, but now I realise that the pancreas that controls our blood sugars in our body, that was really, really poorly for him. And that is what was causing the high and low blood sugars. His pancreas was so poorly, he couldn't regulate the blood sugars. And I think I've learned that quite recently. Didn't kind of think about it at that point. But yeah, your pancreas regulates the whole of your body when it comes to blood glucose. So for my little boy, he was born with a very poorly pancreas.
Okay. So what normally happens is that as soon as we look at the food and the food goes in the mouth, the signals go via brain to pancreas that the food is coming, which will have some glucose in it.
Yeah.
So start producing some insulin.
Yeah.
So that when the glucose gets into the blood, the insulin is there to help put that glucose into the cells, where it gets used to produce energy, which we use for everything which we do, whether we realize or we don't realize, because there are other things like heart is beating, the kidneys are functioning, they all need some energy.
Yeah.
And that comes from glucose as a part of our food. So usually that works very well in terms of how much glucose we are eating and how much insulin pancreas is producing. That's a fantastic mechanism which the body has. But if there is a problem with that mechanism at any point, whether the pancreas is not getting the correct signal or pancreas is unable to respond to those signals, then it can produce either quite a lot of insulin or quite less insulin. And if they produce a lot of insulin, there is a risk that person will go into low blood sugar.
Yeah.
And if they produce less insulin, then the blood sugar will be high, which is known as diabetes. So I thought I'll just explain that for my listeners so that they can make more sense out of it. So before we move on, Farida Khalifa is saying Assalamu alaikum to you.
Oh, walaikum salam, sister.
And Faz Sheikh is saying yay. So keep sending the messages and I'll keep reading them.
Thank you.
Just, yeah.
So obviously he had the operation. After a couple of days, came out of ICU, HDU, and then was put back on the ward. Unfortunately, at this stage, we then soon found out that the operation was not a success because he was still having low blood sugars. And at this point, as a parent, I was just like devastated because prior to this, another little boy from Scotland had the same operation and he went home okay. So obviously for me, it was really, really devastating. And, I remember it being the month of Ramadan and my husband, I kept a fast and I was trying to open my fast and I just couldn't eat because I was just like in floods of tears. So once my son recovered, obviously with him having the condition, he'd never been bottle fed. He had to be tube fed, so he had to have a gastrostomy. And we learned how to use all of that. And obviously he was having regular, intakes of milk feeds through that over the months. Manchester, in a way, became my home. I would stay there Monday to Friday caring for my little boy. And thankfully they offered us accommodation, so that helped. I couldn't do it totally on my own, so my husband then would come. He would work full-time Monday to Friday, which was hard going, and then he would come and support us at the weekend. So that kind of helped us as a family unit. That was really good for us.
So just explaining again, the gastrostomy is that they put a little tube in the stomach so that you can do the
and then had to put a button, Mickey button. Yeah.
Okay.
So they did that when they did the main big op, because without that, he needed that. That was like his lifeline. So yes. So anyway, we learned to be part of the. Slowly and gradually, we were then becoming part of the medical team, understanding the cares of my son, and we kind of, as parents, we very much got involved. We weren't kind of scared. We were asking a lot of questions, and kind of they did say to us, we then would become the experts, which was a bit like, how can that happen? But actually you do become experts because you then soon realise what best suits your child.
Absolutely.
So our hospital stay, believe it or not, actually lasted 7 months, which I think, if our listeners are listening, probably thinking 7 months, but yes, it needed that. Obviously, within those 7 months, we had regular meetings, met a lot of different professionals. I had to have support from the counsellor. We'd have occupational, health therapists. We would try and get all the support that we needed. And eventually, when we were ready to come home to Wolverhampton, I actually asked the consultants, can I have a meeting and invite as many professionals that are going to be are able to help their support, and also can I invite some of my family members as well, because they need to know that this is not a condition that is going to go away. We're going to have to learn to live with this, and my son, this is something that my son's going to have to live with. And I wanted it to be positive, because I know so many years down the line, like now, my son's 11 years old, he now asks me a lot of questions, and as a parent I wanted to be able to then answer his questions and not bluff him off. So we arranged a meeting. We had a lot of people attend. They were really, really good, but once again, I was towards the end of the meeting, I was in floods of tears because I asked the question, yes, we're going to be going home to Wolverhampton. Obviously in Wolverhampton, they were getting prepared for us. So all the different professionals were all booked in to either come into our home or telephone us, have some form of contact with us to kind of help us. It was towards the end of the meeting, I kind of asked, has anybody ever come across this condition? And they were like, no, he's the first one in Wolverhampton. And that just scared me again, because I was in such a safe place at the hospital with all the staff knowing about this condition. I was now going to move back to my home, which I couldn't wait to do. But it was, from a parent's point of view, it was really, really scary. So I was in floods of tears again. We arrived in Wolverhampton, alhamdulillah, in the month of Ramadan on the 27th ninth. Alhamdulillah, it was so good, and I couldn't have asked for a better day to come back home again with my little boy.
And what happened with the operation then? What was the outcome of the operation?
As in the complex operation that he had.
Yeah.
He had the operation. Obviously, without that op, he would never have come home because he was just attached to so many different pipes. They obviously made sure that we had the right medications for him, so we came back with a whole load of lots of medication. Obviously, he was tube fed, so we were trained to learn how to feed him, and we had the professional support from the people that supply all of that as well. So we could phone them, and also we'd have like the nurse from Wolverhampton. They would come to our house, they would support us. So having had the op, there was a lot of training and a lot of education. And initially when we first did come home, we did we went back to New Cross because he became really poorly again for a little while. So yeah, it was trying to really prepare us as a family.
And how is Zan doing now?
Mohammed Zain, I have to say, is doing absolutely great, purely because when he was first born, he had a seizure due to his low blood sugars, and they did say to me that he'd got bleeding on the left side of his brain, and that could have resulted in him being a lot more disabled, not being able to talk. And they did say to me he might not talk, he might not walk, he might not feed, and everything. Actually, it's been quite the opposite. He now talks, he walks. He's a great 11-year-old boy that's just started a fantastic secondary school that absolutely meets his needs, which is really difficult as well. When you've got children with conditions, it's really, really hard to go out and find something that is going to be of suitable to your child's needs. We've actually found something that has been great. They've been wanting to learn. They're helping us, and Mohammed Zain is really, really settled in terms of his feeding, considering he was never bottle fed, he was tube fed. This little boy today is eating a whole variety of different foods. He's chewing, he's swallowing. It's just great to see. And he's actually a very active boy, but then we've never hidden him. He's always been out in the community. If we've had problems with hypos, we've treated him there and then. And if there's people around us, like family or friends, they've supported us. So we've never done it that, he's got a hypo, quickly, let's do it. No, we've all been part of it as a family.
And what about the education side of things?
The education side, I have to say that, it does affect him, because even now while he's at school, and when he has been at school, he's been monitored every 2 hours. So bless him, he has to have his finger pricked. He has to, and sometimes he'll have high blood sugar, sometimes he'll have low. Since 2018, he then had the rare form of diabetes, which is what they said that eventually he will become diabetic. So now he's diabetic. So then obviously we have to, he's controlled by insulin. Although he's controlled on insulin, I play a big part in the diet side of it. So I do a lot of home cooking. We use the dietitian, Anne Hafton, and she's advised us. And we do a lot of healthy eating. If it's not vegetables, it's salad. And we do it not just for him. We do it for the whole of the family. So it's really quite nice, because we feel then that we're supporting him. Because for a young little child, how would you then support him? And I think because we've been part and we've adapted to his needs, we then carry that out when we're out and about as well. And families and friends have to adhere to it. It can be difficult for them. They might not understand it, but we continue with it. So he's just become this confident, happy boy, and enjoys his life like any other child would do, which is what we wanted as a parent for him.
Excellent. That's very heartwarming. We need to head towards the break very shortly, but before I go on break, I will read some of the messages for you. There is a person called Aaron Bradley. He says, my son has the same condition. It's a difficult road to travel. He's 19-month-old. So obviously they are listening to the program and finding it hopefully helpful. I think Farida Khalifa, she's
my sister.
She said she has answered to Aaron saying, reach out to my sister or myself if you need support. That's really good. So the messages are coming. I think good to see Sister Naseem sharing her son Zan's very rare medical condition, a tough experience with a great results. It's good to see she had full support from medical and
Yeah.
most important family. Stay blessed, Alvina. So we will continue to talk about the journey which you had with your son. We are heading to a short break, which will last for about 4 minutes. And once we will come back, I will ask Sister Naseem, how did the rest of the family gone through the emotional phases of Zan's journey? So stay tuned with us. If you need to ring us, our number is 01902 972 150, and we will come back after the short break. Welcome back and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. dear listeners and viewers on the Facebook. Welcome back to Health Clinic with Dr. Gillani, and we are joined by Sister Naseem, who is sharing with us a very inspirational journey of her son and her family, which is who has a very rare medical condition. Those who have just joined us, you can send us the comments on Facebook Live. I apologize to those people whose comments I couldn't read. They have gone down so much that I couldn't actually get hold of them. There were other people who have said very supportive things. So just keep posting. I will try to read them out as they come so that before they disappear, I can read them. So in this part of the program, we are just continuing that talk, and perhaps I would like to ask Sister Naseem, you had the other child born after Muhammad Zubair, and he came in first couple of years when Muhammad Zain was going through those difficult times, and you spent a lot of time in Manchester. How did that time period went for you and your family?
Well, if my sister's listening, she'll probably laugh now, because initially I didn't realise I was pregnant. And it was my sister that actually said to me, you know what, you just need to get yourself checked, because you're walking like a penguin. And I'm like, right, okay. I just thought I was really stressed when I came back. Yeah, it was hard. I felt kind of embarrassed. I'd just come back from Manchester. I was looking after my poorly child, and then all of a sudden I was pregnant, and I knew nothing about it. So yeah, it was my sister that kind of encouraged me. And I remember in the December of that year, I got myself checked, and yeah, it was positive. Mohammed Zubair was there, and I'd gone 5 months. So obviously, the professionals were not happy with me. They were like, you've missed all the tests. You've got a child with HI. This one could have the same condition. And I said, hold on a moment. I have a faith. And at this stage, if you're telling me I've gone 5 months, we will not look at terminating at all. If anything, if this little child has also got the condition, I know exactly where to go. I know where the support is now, and actually what I will ask you to do is that as soon as he is delivered, we get him transferred to neonatal and get him checked, and that's exactly what we did. Mohammed Zubair was born 21st of June 2010. 14 months later, he was born by C-section, so I was one very, very poorly mother. Obviously, at that same time, I was panicking and worrying about Muhammad Zain, but my family, my sister-in-law, everybody took over and looked after him. My husband, they all kind of looked after his cares while I had the other one. And actually, when Mohammed Zubair was born, he was monitored over 2 to 3 days while I was recovering from childbirth, and he was absolutely fine. He doesn't have the condition at all.
Oh, that must be a relief.
It was a major relief, because I just felt, I think I was kind of angry as well. I felt a bit angry with the professionals because they were telling me that you've done it. But I think I was just so busy looking after Mohammed Zain as well, and more kind of worried about him, that I didn't even realise that actually I was carrying another little one. And at that point I did think, it was a bit insensitive of them, really. But luckily I have a strong faith, and we continued with it. And I knew if he did have the condition, I would have gone straight back to the professionals that have supported us with Mohammed Zain.
Okay.
That's the approach I would have taken.
So Aaron Bradley, whose I think son is having the same condition, he's asking, how did his eating develop?
Right, a big one. Mohammed Zain was very lucky at that point. My sister-in-law had 2 other children. They would all be at my house, and so all 3 of them, and then even Mohammed Zubair, when he was at that stage, they would all sit together at the table, and Mohammed Zain would copy all of them. Mohammed Zain soon realised that when Mummy was cooking, he could smell. So he would request, Mum, 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 Mum. And the first thing he ever ate was noodles. So it was just a matter of putting it in his mouth, and he would swallow it. That's like the first foods he ever ate. But he had a lot of encouragement from the rest of his cousins, and then obviously when his brother was born, that definitely supported and helped him with his diet.
Okay, excellent. So hopefully Aaron would be looking at it with a more optimistic way, because it can be very, very challenging and difficult for any
Absolutely.
parents.
Yeah.
So as a family, you are a unit with a little sibling, two of you, your other family members around. How did that emotional journey go over last 10, 11 years?
It's been hard, I have to say, but then at the same time, I've seen progression. Obviously, at first, there was a lot of disbelief and trying to challenge within the community, because we were hearing, don't worry, he'll get better, he'll get better. And I kept on saying to my husband, no, you have to understand. And my husband's from abroad, so I had to literally speak to him and say to him, listen, he's got such a huge condition, you can't see it on him, but actually within him, he's a very poorly child, and we are going to have to do this together. I can't do it on my own. I'm not going to be the only mother figure for him. You are the dad that will also support, and that's how we've done it. We've worked together. We've helped each other. We do the blood sugars together. Now we do the injections. Any appointments that we've had to attend, we do it as a family. So Mohammed Zubair is involved as well. So he knows exactly what's going on as well. Because I think at times we've concentrated so much on Mohammed Zain. Poor little Mohammed Zubair has felt a bit missed out. So initially when he was born, he had a lot of support and help from my sister-in-law and my brothers. They were there for him as well. So yeah, it's been hard. Sometimes I think it's nice to have your family there as well, but sometimes it can be a challenge, because you're following a regime that health-wise is really important, and sometimes that is not understood by your members of the family and friends as well. So sometimes it can be difficult. Even now, I can go somewhere, and as you know, in Asian families, you get a plate of food or a drink. Sometimes I have to say, I've just done his blood sugars, they're high, please don't give him we'll just have a drink, a bit of this. No, unless it's not sugar free, he can't have it. I'm really sorry. And I think they feel guilty, but actually when I've gone home and the next day when we've done Mohammed Zain's blood sugars, they're okay. The worst thing that can happen is for him to have very high blood sugars, because then he gets upset. He can't have the foods that he wants to eat. So all the time, we're trying to work with this, trying to balance his blood sugars.
Yeah, so Farida is saying that education and knowledge is the key. Aaron is saying thank you. Wahida is saying amazing family. So I perhaps would now want to ask you what type of support you have actually received from NHS as a whole.
Right. Yep.
So you mentioned obviously you were looked after at New Cross, you looked after at Manchester, you had people coming to your home, and what role did you think they played in bringing Mohammed Zain to this stage?
So what we have done as a family, really, we've got a really strong relationship with the Royal Manchester Children's Hospital. If ever I have any questions, I know I can phone them, and I have done, for any advice, whether it's dietary, to do with this school. They've been really, really good. Quite recently, apparently some parents have set up a hyperinsulinism group. So I've been able to be part of that, and that's quite nice. And I think that's where you're getting some of the messages from as well, because you can feel very on your own. And to think that I'm the first parent with a child with I have felt very on my own sometimes. So this is a group now that I'm part of that is lovely, because you just feel part of a family, as you've just heard some of the messages there. Yes, I can relate to these parents now, and we can talk and we can text, and that's a positive for us. So that's been great. But yes, and then also with Wolverhampton as well, we've now got links with the diabetes, paediatric diabetes team. And initially it was hard, because to think from hyperinsulinism, from managing low blood sugars, then it's like your brain has to then adapt to managing high blood sugars for diabetes, and then sugar-free diet. initially I struggled with it. I can remember going shopping and thinking, what do I buy? I had to then go back to the dietitian. She came to my house. She explained a few things to me. I spoke to the dietitian at Manchester. Together, I then was able to move forward. Because the other thing I did say to him, don't tell us to eat one piece of meat, potato and veg. We don't do that in the Asian community. But then I've adapted my Asian food to kind of low sugar stuff. I will cook with like different types of kind of good strength flours that have got a lot of vitamins in it. And you know, in the Asian community we love our roti, but that can be cooked in a more healthy way. So all these things that I've been practicing for about 2 years, actually it does work. And we're so lucky. From when Mohammed Zain was first born in 2009, I can remember it was really hard to get stuff that had low sugar. Now you can go to the shops and there is actually, you can buy more items that have got low blood sugars than high blood sugars. So I know even like things are changing in the community and you can access things that can make your life better as well, that can like help you. So yeah. And then with a lot of the professionals, obviously we've made sure that we've had good links with the school nurse while he's gone to nursery, primary and now secondary. They've been absolutely fantastic. We've had links with the Gem Centre in Wolverhampton. They've been really good. Dietitians, absolutely great. I think sometimes you question it as a parent. You think, am I doing the right thing? Why do you want to struggle? Pick up the phone, speak to them. They're there to help you. I've had them in my house. I've talked to them on the phone. They're great. And sometimes I have felt really low where I've had to have counselling. That's been great for me as well, because every transition has kind of been difficult for me to cope with, because I am his main carer. I've cut my hours of work so I can care for him. So yeah, I've had to have counselling, but that's been great. You know, as a parent, I haven't looked at it as negative. They're there to help and support, and in return it gives me then the energy to then look after my son again in the best possible way that I can. The teachers at school, they've been really good. They've had to be trained up. Yes, I think they've been a bit like us. Oh my gosh, what's this condition? He's the only one in Wolverhampton. They're going to feel that way. I felt like that as a parent. So wherever he goes, he's the first one. Yes, you're going to be scared. But luckily, as a family, we've said to him, all you've got to do is give us a call. We will guide you. And that's what we've done. So we've worked very, very closely with them. And with all the professionals, I would say, we've just made a really good relationship with them.
Great. So it's Fams Hussain Walik here. Says, super mummy doing a brilliant job. Well done, says.
Oh, thank you.
Fahima from Birmingham.
Yep.
So the question I wanted to ask was that how do you see future of Mohammed Zain?
He's always going to have his condition. At the moment, he's lucky he's got his parents behind him. We're there to support him. Oh, it's blood sugar time. It's insulin time. We set our alarms for him. He's slowly learning. We don't want to push him too far. He's had enough on his plate already. You know, he's got his kind of schooling that he has to excel in. He has his Arabic that I want him to excel in. If his Appa Salehas listening and the family, Slala come to them, because they've been absolutely great with him. Yeah, as long as he picks up what we're kind of teaching him and we're being taught by the professionals, I think he'll be okay. I think he'll be, because so far it's been so good. As much as he's had his condition, as much as he's had a lot of time in hospital, and then, you know, he's had to, he understands his life is different from other children around him. He's still a very kind of bubbly child and kind of gets on with life. That happens to be his personality. If he was here today, he wouldn't be afraid to come and speak to you, because that is his personality. He's not a shy, timid child. And I think in a way, with the way that we've brought him up, he's very independent. He loves being out and about. He likes new things. He's creative. So we haven't stopped him from excelling. We want him to learn new things. And with his condition, hopefully he will, you know, he's at that age now where he understands. I always say to the doctors now, don't speak to us, speak to him. You need to be speaking to the child now. He understands. He's got questions, So I'm hoping he picks it up slowly as well. We're not here to push him, and I don't believe in that. But we will guide him, just like we've had to learn. He will learn. That's the way I see it.
Sure, yeah, and I think it's a fantastic story, and and you must be very proud of, and you should be proud of what you have achieved, and you have gone through a struggle, a whole new struggle, an unforeseen struggle.
Yeah.
Perhaps many ways it can be compared with the current COVID-19 situation, when we don't know what this bug is, and last 6 months of our life is all about learning these things. But I think the most important element is that, being from the Asian community, I think we respond very differently to these kind of conditions, and sometimes our resilience is not as good as it could be for many other communities. What would be your message for the Asian communities whose children suffer with type 1 diabetes, which is more common than obviously this condition, but it has got quite a lot of similarities with this condition? So what would you like to say to those parents?
My message to the parents would be, if you find out your child's got a condition, yes, it's going to shock you. Every child wants a normal child, but some children are born with these conditions. We've got to understand we're lucky in this country to have NHS. If we didn't have what we had, my son wouldn't be where he is today. I'm very grateful. The operation that he had, the 7 months of staying I had to do, that's all very costly, and we're really lucky to have the professionals that we do. So as parents, we need to respect what you have to offer to us, and I would say, initially be open and honest with yourselves, accept what you're saying to us, which can be hard. When the doctor said to me, "Oh, he's got this," it just went above my head. It was too clinical. But try and be open and honest. We all have a faith. Try and pray for your child, but then in return, accept what the professionals. So work together. It all works together. If I didn't have my faith, I don't know where I would be today. I'm grateful for that. But then I'm so grateful that I've worked together with the professionals, because I've highlighted to you today all the different people that have entered my home. I've allowed that to happen. A lot of people will close their doors. I agreed to have it open, and a lot of different people came in to help support myself and Mohammed Zain, but we accepted it, which was great. And then along the way, some of these professionals came away, as Mohammed Zain didn't need the help. But yeah, I would say, talk to them, listen to them, try to implement what the professionals are saying to us. So listen to them, take the advice, go back home, try different things, see if it works, and take it from there, because that's what we've done with Mohammed Zain. When they've given us advice on different diets with his feeding, that took us a lot of months and years for Mohammed Zain to eat the way that he does now, to learn to swallow. And it was a huge job for us, but we did it. And today this boy who couldn't eat and swallow is eating a plate of food, So, yeah. And also, I also think it's really important, from the day that Mohammed Zain's been born, I've always kept a diary. So I monitor what he eats orally. I write it down. I always monitor his blood sugars, and we make a note of that. If he has any hypos, why he's had the hypo, why his sugars might be too high. He might have ate something. You've done his blood sugar too early. He's got high blood sugar. It speaks for himself. I've got a lot of books over the years, because if ever we had to call out the ambulance, you've got it all in your book. You don't need to remember anything when you're stressed. You just give it out. You've got nothing to hide, and they can work from it. So to keep to keep diaries, I think, is really important. And then I think you need to remember that your child deserves a happy life. They've got to be content. You've got to give them creativity in their life. You have to work together as a family. And for us, the only good example I can give you is, this isn't just about Mohammed Zain in my family. We've all adapted to his way of life. And actually, it's a healthy way of life. And I think for the Asian community, it can be very much right. He's got the condition, we've got to deal with him. Give him that. You've got to look after your blood sugars. You've got to, no. This, to me, this is like, actually, what's wrong with us all being active? Go out for an hour's walk together. Go out as a family, not just for one child, but for as a whole. Because actually, it kind of helps everybody. And I think I'm kind of here today because I feel so kind of happy about the way we've progressed. Because initially, when he was born, it was all, he won't do this, he won't do that. Actually, he does everything. When Mohammed Zubair was born, I had a consultant coming to see me to see how Mohammed Zain was progressing. Because when he left, it was all, he's had a seizure, he'll be like this. Actually, they were shocked that he was a toddler and moving around and eating and drinking.
Excellent, brilliant. I mean, this is a fantastic story to hear, and I'm sure the listeners would have found it as useful. We are just sort of run out of the time for this part of the program. We are very grateful that you came in and you shared your personal stories, which is very inspirational, and I hope that people would find it helpful. It would be available to view on the Facebook as well as on the YouTube, so more and more people will look at it. Once again, thank you very much, and all the very best with your family and Mohammed Zain, and hopefully he will do very well in life.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Jazakallah for today. Thank you for allowing me to come and speak about my experience.
Thank you very much. So I'll leave you guys with the nasheed, and in the meantime, we need to have a changeover when my next guest is going to come. So just stay with us, and we will be back after a short break. Till that time, just hear the nasheed from our side. Thank you.
आंख से ना तमाशा करे कोई, हो देखना तो दीदाए दिल वाह करे कोई, अड़ बैठे क्या समझ के भला तूर पर कलीम, ताकत हो दीद की तो तकाजा करे कोई। इलाही तेरी चौखट पर भिखारी बन के आया हूँ, सरापा फाक्र हूँ, इज्जो नदामत साथ लाया हूँ। इलाही तेरी चौखट पर भिखारी बन के आया हूँ, सरापा फाक्र हूँ, इज्जो नदामत साथ लाया हूँ। भिखारी वो कि जिसके पास झोली है न प्याला है, भिखारी वो जिसे हिर्सो हवस ने मार डाला है। मताए दीन दानिश नफ्स के हाथों से लुटवा कर, सुकूने कल्ब की दौलत हवस की भेंट चढ़वा कर, लुटा कर सारी पूंजी गफलतों इस्यां की दलदल में सहारा लेने आया हूँ तेरे काबे के आंचल में। गुनाहों की लिपट से कायनात कल्बों फसुदा, इरादे मुज़महल हिम्मत शिकस्ता हौसले मुर्दा, कहाँ से लाऊं ताकत दिल की सच्ची तर्जुमानी की, इस झंझाल में गुज़री हैं घड़ियां जिंदगानी की। खुलासा ये कि बस जल भून के अपनी रूह सियाही से, सरापा फाक्र बनकर अपनी हालत की तबाही से, तेरे दरबार में लाया हूँ अपनी अब ज़बू हाली, तेरी کے لائق ہر عمل سے آنکھ ہے خالی. یہ تیرا گھر ہے، تیرے مہر کا دربار ہے مولا. سراپا نور ہے، ایک محبت انوار ہے مولا. تیری چوکھٹ کے جو آداب ہیں میں ان سے خالی ہوں. نہیں جس کو سلیقہ مانگنے کا وہ سوالی ہوں. زبان پہ ندامت دل کی ناقص ترجمانی پر خدایا رحم میری اس زبانے بے زبانی پر.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers and listeners, Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the program Health Clinic with Dr. Gillani. The first part is over, where we have heard from Sister Naseem, her very inspirational story about the condition her son suffers from. Now we got our second guest in our studio, Subtan Khan, another very inspirational story, and I would not waste any time to go to him directly and ask him to introduce himself and then to tell us about his charity. Subtan, thank you very much for joining us. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for coming in. And Subtan, tell us a little bit about yourself and then tell us about your charity.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Subtan Khan. I'm one of the co-founders of Ma Foundation, a charity that is working in the third world currently to support cancer patients. It's largely inspired by 2019 and the struggles that me and my siblings faced. Witnessing my mom battle with cancer. We kind of saw many obstacles and faced many adversities whilst she was sort of going through her treatment, from the moment that she was diagnosed. And so, unfortunately, she passed away earlier in the year, in January. And so we kind of transformed that pain, and we got together and thought, we should start an initiative that supports those people, because alhamdulillah, we're all, there's 4 siblings and we were all financially stable. We were able to provide for mom, from her medication to dropping off to hospital and supporting her in every way possible. And in her latter days, she got to the point where she was extremely unwell, in real pain. And just witnessing, and anyone that has been through something similar can relate. When a loved one is it's out of your control, you're helpless, and you just want the best situation for them. And it was 2-3 days before she passed away, and my mum was a very reserved woman, and even in her state, and she went out of that state, and she used to cry a lot. There was a lot of wailing, in pain, and there was the I remember the moment. It was 6th of January, and I was sitting there waiting for the palliative nurse to come, because I had rang her because my mom was really unwell overnight, constantly throwing up, crying in pain, and we had the ambulance come and give her the anti-sickness, and I rang the St. John's ambulance, and I said, the hospital are saying they can't do anything with for my mom. Is there anything that you can do to help her? And I think it was more of a cry for help for myself at that moment in time, because she was in such a state that I kind of thought, I don't know whether it's her that needs the help or it's me. And no amount of money and no amount of strength at that moment in time can help you, other than the fact that you're kind of there and you're witnessing someone that you dearly love just wasting away. And I remember the palliative nurse came and said, Subtan, this is what it's going to be like. But just knowing that service was available really reassured me. There was still that sort of sense of, I've got someone to call. And unfortunately, a couple of days later, my mom did pass away. And me and my siblings, we sat, and it was in the first sort of 3 days after my mom passing, and we said, alhamdulillah, we were able to support mom. We were able to take her to the hospital, and we, as financially stable as we were or are, the hospital visits and paying for the parking tickets, we used to have to park her, after chemo. She used to be in hospital for 2 weeks at a time because of her infection and them trying to control it, and having to go there every day, and the parking tickets and the financially, that was a burden. And we said we had everything, and we gave mom as much as we could. But there are people in this world who, a mom is a mom. You know, whether you're poor or you're rich, that's besides the point. You're going to love your mom unconditionally, and there's people who have to witness their parents suffer, you know, their mothers suffer, without any provision, without any sort of support, you know, even a conversation to reassure them, you know, and it's unbelievable. And it's, you know, I still sort of am in awe of how God, you know, puts you on a path. It was the 8th of January that my mom passed away, and on the 22nd of January, 2 weeks after she passed, I flew out to Azad Kashmir, you know, from Pakistan, just to research what the situation was there, what sort of provisions were in place, were there any facilities, and I got to connect to some amazing people. You know, I got to connect to the right people, you know, to the physicians, to the head of Azad Kashmir pathology department. So these were all things that I really, in hindsight, feel that God had put in our path to you know, to take us down this road of hopefully, inshallah, supporting as many people as we can. And when I got there, you know, the general consensus was that there really isn't anything that happens for these patients. You know, the families suffer, you know, and it really struck me because I was hoping that there was something that was already set up that I could contribute to, and you know, it was you know, the week after, so I went there for 2 weeks, and soon after I met a patient, the first patient that we began to support. And I remember walking in, and she looked really unwell, and she had had her first chemo round. And I asked her, I said, you know, my mom used to get infections, and we used to check her temperature, and, you know, your normal body temperature should be ranging from 36.5 to 37. You know, and you've just gone through 3 weeks of chemo, you know, 3 weeks after your chemo. How are you feeling? She said, I've had the worst 3 weeks of my life. And I said, why is that? She goes, I know that there's something wrong, but I can't put my finger on it. I go, have you been checking your temperature to check if you've been, you know, you've got an infection? She said, I didn't know that you had to, or you know, that was an indication of some sort of problem. And I said, it is. And it was a simple thing of me going to the local bazaar and, you know, purchasing a 300 rupees thermometer, and sitting with her son and speaking him through what sort of support he can provide in terms of checking her temperature on a regular basis. And alhamdulillah, she was one of the patients that we then took on, and we provided her with, you know, monthly £150 a month, which covered her chemotherapy round and her transport to the hospital. Now, talking about the hospital, it's you know, it's striking how there is no provision for cancer patients, you know, a cancer treatment center in Azad Kashmir at the moment. So the nearest cancer treatment center is in Islamabad, which is 120 miles away. Now, anyone that's done that journey, and especially on the roads that, you know, you kind of face, it's exhausting. And I can only imagine, and I remember having to drive mom to Queen Elizabeth Hospital, and it was, you know, when she's, you know, you've had your chemotherapy and your immunity is low and your body's feeling really weak, even that journey of, you know, 5 to 6 miles is a lot, but 120 miles that they had to travel, it was just draining. And I remember having to do that journey, and I thought, how do they do it? How do they manage? And a lot of these patients have to go on public transport because they can't, you know, they can't afford the private cars for that cost 10,000 rupees. And so one of the things that we wanted to do, and we then, you know, all of these sorts of ideas came into my head, and I thought, you know, we need to take it slow. We need to start with the basics, with what we, you know, what is within our reach. And so we set up a 3-phase program, which is currently undergo. The first phase was we're supporting patients, paying for their transport to the hospital. I mean, a lot of patients didn't go to their treatments, or just, you know, avoided hospitals because they couldn't get to the hospitals. You know, getting to Islamabad was having to get out their house at 4 a.m, having to catch a rickshaw to the local sort of coach station, as it were, and then travel 4 hours on a coach. You know, with Pakistan in itself is, you know, it's not the most cleanest of places, as you might know, and it was just they just avoided going. And so what we did was, originally what we had planned is we were going to pay for their transport to the hospitals, which was costing us 10,000 rupees per trip. And soon we realized that this is really sort of, it's draining our funds. We're asking people, and, alhamdulillah, the support that we've been given, and again, it's from Allah. I truly believe that anyone that contributes to this mission, it's their sort of contribution to what Allah has set up. And it's, and so we realized that the money sort of was quickly going, and we thought we need to look at a long-term effective sort of solution to this. So I was back in Azad Kashmir in the summer, and one of the things that we did, we purchased our own transport. So we bought our own ambulance, which, it's got a fully sort of equipped stretcher and sort of seats and the oxygen and everything in there, to take the patients free of charge. So where it was costing 10,000 rupees, now it only costs 3,000 for the petrol, and the driver takes 500 rupees for the day. So that's one of the things that we've been able to achieve in the last 6 months of having this set up in this initiative. And the other thing is we're supporting our patients with scans. It ranges from 4,000 rupees to about 15,000 for a CT scan, for a biopsy, for an MRI scan. And again, the patient that I met, like my mom, my mom left her tumor to grow for about 6 months, but her reasons were not anything financial. It was purely because she thought that, and it's one of the things within our community. I think it's a level of ignorance that we have, or we're hearing the word cancer it throws people back. And I think my mom, as it was sort of growing, she was hoping that it would go. She thought that it was we call it a guilty in our language.
So she felt the lump and she just ignored.
Yeah, she ignored it. She said, she later she revealed to us that she thought that it was going to subside. It was going to disappear. And again, that's sort of the ignorance, because she was offered scans free of charge on the NHS to get it checked. And she ignored those letters, and I think one of the things that I would certainly want to, one of the message that I would want to send out is that, it is better to prevent than to search for a cure later on. And one of the things that, and again, it's all Allah. Whatever time is written for you, you're not going to go a minute earlier or a minute later, and I'm a firm believer in that. And but I'd wished that. And we frequently speak, when we're sort of, me and my siblings, and we say, if only mom had told us sooner, or if only, she had sort of given us an indication, or we could have taken active steps. She may have been in her ignorance, or she may have been stuck in her ways, but we should have known better. And I think as generations go on now, I think we need to put aside the stigmas that we have in our communities, because, cancer is becoming quite a widespread issue. My friend who's a doctor was telling me that by 2030, one in every two people at some point in their life will be diagnosed with it, or will have a tumor. And I think if we avoid it, the problem just gets worse. And the problems that we saw with my mom were it was a one for a better term, but it was hell for the family. Witnessing her having to have a chemotherapy, and we need to sort of start to research more about it. And one of the programs that we've part of our program, part of the phase 1 of our Azad Kashmir program, is raising awareness. Now on the 28th of September, alhamdulillah, we've got our own head office. We've set that up over the summer whilst I was there, and it is about raising awareness. Now, our team, we've got people that that are part of the movement, as we call it, are sort of working with local teachers, working with local educated members of the community to really sort of spread awareness. We've made leaflets about sort of the telltale signs, the symptoms of cancer, or just if it's not cancer, at least get it checked out, and I think, again, like I said, finance can be a barrier, and that's one of the things that we want to alleviate through our initiative, and through donations. People have wholeheartedly supported us, and so that's some of the things that people's finances can help us do, to say, okay, it's going to cost you 2,000 rupees to get this scan, or 4,000 rupees to get this scan. We'd rather you have that scan and alleviate the risk, because it will become more expensive if they leave it. So we're really trying to push and educate the people in those remote villages, in places where, last year when I was speaking to the head of pathology of Azad Kashmir, her name's Dr Zaida Qasim, and she told me that almost 40,000 women were diagnosed with breast cancer last year, and that's a striking number for a place where data isn't collected as sort of centrally as it is here. And I thought, what about all those other, in those remote villages, in those places where, they're scared to come out and speak about it? We need more sort of dialogue on cancer. Personally, just through my own experience, I can sit here and I can speak about it. I'm no physician. I'm not medically trained, but it's one of those things that I forced myself, when Mom became ill, to educate myself on. And it's unfortunate, again, it's something in our community that we only start to research on it, or we start to sort of work on it when it's at our doorstep, rather than saying, what, it's something in the future, it's strategic, and we need to start to plan it for any eventuality. We need to learn about it. And that's one of the things that when I was over there over the summer, people were saying, okay, it might not happen to us, but it might, it might happen.
So then, thank you very much for sharing that. I think, first of all, very sorry to hear about your mom. May Allah rest her soul in peace. And it is really very motivational to see how you have channeled your grief to a very constructive activity, and how it has inspired you to do something as spectacular as this. This is really a big achievement. So congratulations from me, and hopefully my listeners would also be appreciating your efforts so far.
Thank you.
I think you raised a very important question of how we should educate our community, how we should bust these stigmas which we have lived with for so long. And as you rightly pointed out, breast cancer is one of a very, very common cancers in women, and no woman is immune to it. Yes, if it runs in the families, the risks are higher, but it can happen to anybody at any stage. And there are loads of educational material available about how to self-examine yourself. And then you rightly pointed out there is a mammography screening which NHS offers. Similarly, in men, the testicular examination, which again is a stigma, but if it is picked up earlier, both of these tumors can be dealt with quite efficiently. So these are the real issues which our community face, and even living in this country, let alone the place where there is no infrastructure, there is no such thing to pull everything together. So where you are doing it, I think it is an absolutely splendid job. So how do you think you are going to progress from this point?
Well, we are incredibly determined. In the space of 6 months, we have achieved so much. And when I talk about I genuinely believe that there have been people in our path, and a lot of the listeners today who have told me that they're going to be listening. I hope they're listening. Have really supported, and what we're aiming to do, and we've bought our first transport that is being used in the last month. It's used about 16 times so far. Taking those patients to Islamabad, to Lahore, to those cancer treatment centres. Our next phase is the cancer treatment centre. What we are aiming to do, and this is going to be our sort of the first cancer treatment center in Azad Kashmir. So patients won't need to make those journeys, those lengthy journeys, 120, 150 miles. They'll have it at their doorstep. They'll have a free scanning system. They'll be able to be given free scans, free diagnosis, free cancer treatment. There's a lot of people sort of draw a parallel to the Shaukat Khanum Hospital in Lahore, which was set up by Imran Khan, the current Prime Minister of Pakistan, and that was 25 years ago. That from his grief, he set that up, and and that's a great bar, because I went there this time when I was during the summer, because we've got one of our patients that we're currently funding. He's a 23-year-old leukemia patient, and he's currently receiving treatment from Shaukat Khanum, and I went to visit him, and the facility is amazing. It's absolutely brilliant, but it's absolutely brilliant for the people of Pakistan, not for the people of Azad Kashmir. And I think if anyone wants to draw that parallel, it's flattery. It's actually quite a great bar to have to reach, and we want to bring that to Azad Kashmir. We want to bring that to a place that has no infrastructure. But there's so much passion, there's so much sort of need for it, and you can see that in the faces of people. The head of pathology really sort of took on board this initiative. She's very active in our work, and we're connected to the local hospital in Mirpur. It's a divisional hospital, because they really want something to be done, and it's all from Allah. And if it's meant to happen, it will happen. But we're going to do everything in our power to ensure that it does happen. And we're taking steps to our next sort of phase will be to have a scanning center in Mirpur, in the main sort of region, where people can access it pretty easily, and then it'll be the cancer treatment center. And so all of this is in our planning phase. We're sort of budgeting. We're looking at how much it's going to be costing. And inshallah soon we'll be able to sort of roll out the proposal to our donors, to the local and wider community, and ask them for the support that it'll require.
So is your charity registered in the UK?
Yes, it's registered in the UK, which was one of the obstacles that we overcame. Alhamdulillah, the overseas charities, they because we're supporting Azad Kashmir, and because it's seen as sort of a high risk area, that posed its own challenges. But it was a 26-page proposal that I had to write to the charity commission. But alhamdulillah, we're a registered charity in the UK, so we can work and we can carry out the work that we're doing at the moment.
So if people wants to contact you or support you, what kind of channels you have into your charity?
Our website is currently under construction, but we have a Facebook and an Instagram page at Mar Foundation UK, where we regularly update our sort of donors and supporters. So that would be a good place to start, to access our work, to see what we've done in the last 6 months, and we urge people to DM us, to message us, to it may be, I can donate a airbed for a patient, because they sleep on the rope beds. And even if it's something that you can physically donate, it doesn't need to be monetary. I've had people donate all sorts of sort of gifts and stuff like that for patients, which are all received open-heartedly, because it's not for us. At the end of the day, this is not it's for mothers. In akhirah, inshallah, I hope that God accepts it and she gets the blessings for it. But it's also, everyone comes with their own intentions, and so Facebook and Instagram. Our website inshallah will soon be up live, and we've got a car wash. We're constantly looking at ways of fundraising, because our work is financially driven. We need funds in order for us to maintain what we do. Our next charity fundraiser will be a car wash, because our transport is taking patients, and like I said, it's 3,000 rupees per journey. So we want to urge people to come to that car wash. It's on the 11th of September. No, it's 11th of October, and all the information will be on the Facebook and Instagram page.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sultan. We are now almost near the end of our program. It is 1 minute left. Where is this car wash going to take place?
It's in Handsworth, Birmingham, on Hampstead Road, the Snow Zone car wash. So we will be taking that over for the day on Sunday, 11th of October.
Okay, and you are hoping that people will come and support your cause.
Inshallah, inshallah.
And last 20 seconds, what do you want to say to the community?
I just want to thank you all, and it's all a joint effort. This is it's a Mar family, and we're hoping that people will come together and hopefully support us in any way possible.
Excellent. Thank you very much again. Very motivational story, and I hope and I wish you all the success in your aspirations and ambitions. Keep going. And this was the Health Clinic with Dr. Gillani today. I will come with the next show, and till that time, look after yourself, your family, your neighbors and people around you, and stay safe during these very challenging times. Take care, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.